Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I see folks are coming in to the room. Thank you. As you are coming in, feel free to use the chat to tell us where you're from, where you're zooming in from this morning, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're at. I see people are still coming in, so I'll give folks a moment to arrive. Really looking forward to today's presentation. I had a bit of a sneak peek into this campaign and what this organization is doing, and I think Steve and his team, really cool stuff that I look forward to hearing more about, and glad to be able to share it with everybody. Just a reminder, again, feel free to, oh, I think I might have to put in here, I think might allow people to chat. I always forget that might be a setting. So if you can't chat currently, yeah, chat is off, it says. So let me fix that. Um, as he pauses to try to figure out how to fix that. Why does it not just default to that? I will fix that in a moment. Why is that not working? Oh, here we go. Sorry, everyone.
Mark.
I will continue to work on that unless, Lance, you figured it out.
Oh, yeah. Go
But
ahead and work on that. Do you have
yeah,
any other housekeeping things to talk through before we move
no,
on
feel
to
free to
the?
answer. In the meantime, feel free to use Q&A for any questions you might have,
Oh,
and I'll let you know when chat is active to everybody. But go ahead and jump in.
sure thing. And thanks for calling out the chat issue, Scott. So thanks, Mark, for hosting us today for cracking the code on event fundraising. Before we introduce the topic, these are our speakers today. I'm Lance, General Manager of the North America offices at Funraisin. I joined last summer, around July or so, and I've been building nonprofit experiences for about 17 years. We've got Keith Williams, our COO and CMO. Keith founded and built an e-commerce business in early 2000, I think. And for the past 15 years, he's been working with global event and fundraising software for both consumers and organizations. Keith's been at Fundraising for over 4 years, and Keith is one heck of a fundraiser himself. He does a lot of great posting on LinkedIn about that. And then our star, Steve Oatley from the Army Benevolent Fund, Assistant Director of Fundraising and co-founder of Run2 Events. Steve has worked on creating and delivering fundraising events and projects for 16 years. And then we also have Marie Gamble. So if you see that name in the chat or answering Q&A, she is one of our staff here in North America from Fundraising. So hopefully the chat is working. Looks like it might be, yeah. So Mark, we're moving on to our first of our two polls. If you can boot that off. We're starting with, what motivated you to register for this webinar? So if we get a chance to pivot any talking points or can focus some of the Q&A on these things at the end, we'll be sure to do our best based on your responses here. If you see me looking around, it's because I've got way too many screens looking at those. Hey, those are coming in fast. Thank you. And if your something else response is that you've researched Keith and you want to hear about his Guinness World Record, no, absolutely not. I vetoed that being talked about here today. We still got a bunch of polls coming in hot and fast, so let's leave that open for another couple of seconds. Wow. Not a surprise, any of it, though. Okay, so let's go ahead and end that poll and move on. So this is cracking the code on event fundraising. And I'm not going to read you the agenda here, but I'll just add some context for me. In my first year at Fundraising, I've seen some really amazing and inspiring or touching programs that are run outside of North America. So with how we at Fundraising run our global business, I'm just like constantly hearing about cool things in which I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to tell my friends at such and such organization about this. So for today, you all in the chat are playing the part of my friends, and we're going to sit around and hear about this great program from Steve and how their small team went about it. Today is all about Steve's program, though, but we do want to run through a very brief overview, just a couple of minutes about Fundraising. Maybe also give a chance for some stragglers to join late, eh? Fundraising is a digital agency and digital fundraising platform. It is built specifically for fundraising nonprofits. We're a team of about 90 worldwide, I think, at this point, with a very efficient global professional services team. I think we completed more than 500 projects last year that resulted in millions of people creating fundraising pages on Fundraising to support their causes of choice. And all these sites are hosted on each organization's own instance of Fundraising, and that's set up with their own unique branding. It's a big platform. We provide, oh gosh, peer-to-peer events, DIY, honor memorial capabilities, our own flavor of Facebook fundraising, live streaming ticketing, a lot more. All of this is at one price. There are no upsells if you want to use all of our modules, and there are no monthly recurring fees beyond a really minor recuperation of our hosting costs with AWS. Every user also gets support access and free custom live training. And we are constantly updating our features and integrations. We had, I think, precisely 187 software updates last year. Moving on to the next slide, we've got our first of just two quick slide examples I'll show. You'll see here our core peer-to-peer fundraising dashboard for registered participants. Everything here is designed to, to really help keep people engaged in fundraising through the length of a campaign. That's a lot of the core to what Steve's going to be talking about today. And if I were to capture the main reason why I think fundraising is special here, it's that we place a really hyper focus on a respectful fundraiser experience with a lot of ways of rewarding and recognizing your supporters for their impact. And that can be through tangible incentives, virtual rewards, storytelling opportunities, gamification, things like that. These benefits and opportunities for that, self-expression and, even competition for the people like Keith out there are designed to just, help you create moments and memories, things that go beyond, the traditional peer-to-peer participant coaching. And if you've got that big idea that extends a bit beyond a traditional fundraising experience, our customers do some really amazing things on the fundraising platform. We like to call these sites that are kind of a blend between a peer-to-peer campaign and a donor wall, interactive giving sites. So as an example, the Alzheimer's Association complemented their in-person luminary lighting ceremony. That's part of their winter solstice aspect of their longest day program, complemented with a virtual luminary fundraising site. So once a participant registers, they get their own luminary placed on the snowfield and their own fundraiser page then to tell their own story and watch their lantern glow stronger as they reach their fundraising target. It might sound complex, but we've become really quite efficient, both time and cost on these. Our friends at Alzheimer's Association remarked that this is one of their fastest ever projects. So this is where you can, let your mind run wild. Presents under a Christmas tree, memorial garden, things like that are some of what our customers do with these type of sites. And on my final slide about the product itself, this is all backed by a CMS that's kind of like Wix-like, and it's built specifically though with fundraising sites in mind. So that'll help you add forms, social proof like leaderboards, fundraising stats to any page, really designed also in a way to help you make the best experience through desktop and tablet and mobile and choosing what to show and how to show it through each of those formats. And that's it for me on the fundraising product. If you do want to learn more, we've set up a special microsite, p2pdemo.funraisin.co, which is going to let you test out a fundraiser dashboard yourself without needing to, register for a live site, log in. You won't even need to give us any like lead generation kind of information. That site is open for you to poke around. Steve?
Brilliant. Thank you, Lance. Honestly, it's such a thrill to be here with you all today, and a huge thank you to Mark and to Keith and to Lance and the team for the opportunity to come and be here. I mean, the joy of hearing Lance say "y'all" every other word like makes the whole thing worthwhile just by itself. But
That's an exaggeration, y'all.
but to come and talk about a project that we have put our hearts and souls into for the last 5 years is a real honor. I'm just going to put a bit of context into a bit of scene setting before we get into the detail. Just because of the American audience, you might not know about us, who we are, what we do. So we are the Army Benevolent Fund, and we are the British Army's national charity. So we were set up in 1944, so it's our 80th anniversary this year, by Winston Churchill and the government, primarily because as the tide was turning in the Second World War, they didn't want to make the same mistakes as they did at the end of the First World War. Lots of promises were made around, jobs for the boys and homes for heroes, and millions of men came back, and actually the infrastructure and the systems weren't in place to look after them. So it was all about doing it better second time round. Our role is to make sure that if you do 2 weeks or 35 years in the army, or your direct family, who are often as affected as the individuals, have that support system in place. So whether that's giving money directly to veterans and families, even serving soldiers these days as well, or funding delivery charities, the real specialists, to make sure that they've got the core funding they need to do their work to support the veterans is what we do. Totally non-political, no campaigning, no petitions, no advocacy, nothing like that, and therefore like a very low public profile. And so events for us are the way that we try and raise our profile and engage new audiences and raise those funds that we need. Within the team, within our events team, as we said in the kind of description, there was 2 of us delivering this project. My brilliant colleague Louisa, who really should be the person here talking today, but over 3 months we pulled together the ideas, we built the project, we crafted the puzzles, we were ending up doing everything. And just to reiterate, there wasn't a comms team or a marketing team or a data team or a supporter care team or an innovation team or any of those elements, which helped us be relatively nimble. And with our, working with Funraisin as well to be able to build it, having that flexibility to be able to create things from scratch was a real advantage. But also it meant that, it had to be agile and nimble enough for us to be able to deliver it. The supporter base, and I think this is really important as well. So when we were set up, we were a volunteer committee-led organisations, and we had thousands of committees all across the country, often made up of World War II and national service veterans. So we had national service in the United Kingdom until 1963. So millions of men, it was just men at that point, had to do national service, so spent time in the army. They had direct experience of it, and they probably personally knew people who beneficiaries of the organisation. But as that generation is dying out, sadly dying out, my role is to try and create and deliver new supporters and fundraisers into the charity. So our existing database is very male orientated, a lot older, that direct experience of being in the army, lots of checks, lots of direct marketing, very traditional ways of fundraising. And I see part of my job in the events role is to really broaden the demographic, to try and engage parents, children, families, all of those people that are connected with the armed forces. Perhaps you haven't been in the army, but you've got a parent who has, or a friend who has, or something like that. So you've got that connection, but perhaps you don't. It's a step removed from our core demographics where we started from. So kind of summarizing what we were trying to do here, and I think this kind of links into how I think of the organization. I think of us as an affinity organization rather than a cause organization. And what I mean by that is that no one wakes up on a Tuesday morning or gets a phone call and thinks, what can I do? I'll do anything to support the Army Benevolent Fund this week. Perhaps the British Heart. I'm going to talk about UK charities, sorry, because that's more what I know. But like, you know, somebody has a heart attack, the British Heart Foundation get a call being like, "I'll sign up to any half marathon. Let me do something. I want to raise money for you." You know, a friend gets diagnosed with cancer. I need to do something for cancer research, or you know, there's a family linked to Alzheimer's. You know, what can I do over the course of my life to support the Alzheimer's Society? And where I think affinity charities are slightly different is that people feel incredibly emotionally connected to something, but it's a more general and underlying thing. So for the Army Benevolent Fund, it's very much people feel a huge part of the veteran community. It's a big part of your identity, but you don't have that direct link with one particular cause or one particular charity. It's a more underlying thing. So really, I think it's essential for us as an organization to create really authentic, compelling products in order to drive engagement and profile, and to create a space for the organization to be able to tell its story. You know, it's not as straightforward as give me £5 and I'll build a well. It's about, we need to be there as that insurance network for people that are signing up at 17 now so that we can support them when they're 90 years old. But a key part of it as well is that it absolutely has to be really fun and enjoyable, and you have to get a personal experience out of it. Like, it's about creating that sense of belonging and family, because that's such a big part of the veteran life as well, and the veteran community as well. It's about being part of something through shared experience, but you also get that personal reward and development. So it's how can we kind of build those key elements out and turn it into a fundraising product. So the key part there is absolutely about being authentic to the audience. It's about making sure that they understand that this project sits very clearly with what they're doing and that they are part of something which is, worthwhile. So, always looking for really new and innovative concepts and ways of trying to tap into this audience. And I've just been absolutely obsessed with all the incredible advances in VR headsets and how that really kind of can immerse you in a world that perhaps you don't experience in your day-to-day life, or, you know, a sort of fantasy as well. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And as we were putting this webinar together, Mark was promising me that everyone that signed up to it would actually be sent one of these brand new Apple Vision Pro headsets. So exciting. I was just like, this is amazing. Wow, the budgets over there are fantastic.
Thank you for that, Mark.
Did I miss a meeting?
And unfortunately not. So we're going to try and do something a little bit better and a little bit different. So we're going to go, bearing in mind we're talking about the Second World War and the 1940s and that thing. We're going to go with a very traditional form of virtual reality. I want you all to stop what you're doing. I know you're doing emails on the side. I know you're checking Facebook, latest news articles and all those bits and pieces. I want you to stop what you're doing right now. I want you to put both of your feet flat on the floor, and I want you to close your eyes. I'm serious, genuinely. I want you to close your eyes now. Right. Are you ready? It is 1941, and the UK is in terrible danger. There are German submarines in the English Channel, and planes bomb London every night. The threat of invasion has never been higher. If or when the Nazis do invade, they will block our roads and cut our telephone lines. You are a secret agent, based in Bletchley Park. Your mission is to help us secure a new line of communication. You will need to cover the 50 miles to the Cabinet War Rooms in London, on foot. Along the way, you will need to meet fellow agents who will each provide you with a code. Piece together these codes to reveal the secret message. and deliver it directly to Winston Churchill himself? Can you figure out the code and deliver the message before it's too late? We are relying on you, Agent. Out. Thank you, everyone. You can open your eyes again now. What I hope that demonstrates is that you don't need a big budget or flashy slides or a huge extravaganza to bring ideas to life. But really, it's about resonating. It's about having that essential, authentic element and being really true to the values of the target audience. It's about creating those stories and those narratives, and that's where the secret lies. For those who don't know, Bletchley Park was the hub of British intelligence and code breaking during the Second World War. People like Alan Turing and many other thousands of people meticulously went line by line, cracking German puzzles and codes. And the intelligence that they produced, scholars have said that may have shortened the war by between 2 and 4 years. So incredibly instrumental in the war effort. One thing that they are incredibly well known for as well is that the team started building automatic machinery to help with this decryption. And they developed a machine called Colossus, which is known as the world's first programmable digital electronic computer. So an incredible place and an incredible story that has such a big part in British history, and they teach it in the schools and everyone knows about it. And so we've tried to build our events program linking to stories and values like this. Our events need to be really compelling and engaging. I mean, no one's going to get sponsored to do a 10K dog walk because 80% of our audience have dogs and walk them every day. They're not going to get sponsored for that. So what we have done is we've tried to take the values, what we perceive to be the values of a modern British soldier, and to create and build our program around that. So we've got these long distance walking events carrying kit, which highlight the fitness and the camaraderie and the resilience, both physical and mental, of being a soldier. Our history walks, which follow the front lines of the Western Front in France and Belgium from World War I, or the D-Day landing beaches from World War II. Because that history and the heritage is such an important part of being a soldier. It's standing on the shoulders of giants and remembering those that came before. And then we have these gala dinners, which have all of the pomp and ceremony and, splendor that you'd expect, the royal guests, the military bands and supporters in incredible locations. But this big part that was gnawing away at me is that actually so much of being a soldier is about problem solving. It's about intelligence. It's about signals. It's about code breaking. It's not necessarily about who's the biggest, strongest. It's about who has the right information, who has the right intelligence, who has the right strategy. And that goes all the way back to, the art of war and that side of things.
Steve, sorry, my role is obviously sometimes to my mission was to ask you some questions, and genuinely I'm excited about some of these questions. When you talk about staying true to these values on the screen and initiatives and sort of like what the Army is trying to do, were you worried at any time about staying true to these? And if you were, how did you overcome staying true to these, because it is very easy to get distracted?
It has been a difficult balance. People, I am not a veteran. I have not been in the Army. I've worked for the charity for a long time, but I have a degree of separation from that. I don't want to trivialize it or to make it kitsch or to make it, anything. It's about the authenticity it has to resonate with that audience. So it's about working with people that have been in the Army to understand it, but also to push them as well, because my role is not to just parrot what they've done in the Army, because again, that's not any fun for anybody who's done it. Admittedly, they loved sitting in a dug hole for 14 nights, but I'm not sure they want to replicate it anymore, or anyone else. If you want to sit in a wet hole for 14 nights, join the army. So it's about how you kind of take those elements and make it fun as well. So trying to get that balance right, I think, is something that is a difficult balance to strike. And it's about test and adjust, as ever with anything like this. It's about, does this work? Does this resonate? Does this not? And dialing some things up and dialing some things back as you iterate.
Yeah, and I know everyone wants to see the campaign themselves, and we're only a couple of minutes away. But just quickly, you talk about the audience, traditional audience, and then you talked about looking for a new audience. How did you kind of like overcome that around keeping authentic but addressing a wider audience?
I think where we're very lucky is that everyone has an idea of what a soldier is and what the army is. And I'm sure it's as true in the US as it is in the UK. Like whether it's a historical view from past battles or past things, or a modern connection. So actually, I think people have a vision in their mind of what the army is and who soldiers are and what they are. So it's about trying to leverage that understanding and turn it into something of, oh, actually, that looks like a fun way of dipping my toe in the water without signing on the dotted line.
Thanks, Steve.
Great. So yeah, to then kind of talk about the campaign itself. So we've taken those values of around the intelligence and the storytelling, and created Operation Bletchley. And the idea behind Operation Bletchley is that as you sign up, you become that secret agent. You are that person that has to get that mission to Winston Churchill before time runs out. You have to crack the codes. So the basic premise is that you've got a month to cover the distance on foot. It is 50 miles between Bletchley Park and the Cabinet War Rooms in London. You can do it anywhere in the world. And every time you get past a 5-mile milestone, it triggers an email that's sent to you, which has a puzzle, a code in it. There's 3 levels of code. So there's Junior Codebreaker, which is aimed at 8 to 12-year-olds. Codebreaker, which is really testing my limits. And then we've got Cipher Expert, which I'm sure Lance and Mark and you, Keith, are doing in your sleep. We try to make that as hard as we possibly can. And the aim is that it's aimed at as a multi-generational product. A grandfather can do it with their daughter and with their granddaughter, and they can all go together, and actually they can help each other solve the puzzles. Because one thing that we've already found is it's amazing how different people's brain works. And when we get people together in a team, actually it's the 8-year-old that comes up with the innovative idea on how to break the code breaker puzzle or the Cipher Expert puzzle, because they're just thinking laterally or in a different way. And it's that idea of bringing people together and having that whole experience. Key for us was maintaining that authenticity the whole way through. So our names are never revealed. All the emails are signed by Agent S or Agent L. And you're not going to be referred to your name either. You have a chance to create your own code name, and then that's going to be how emails are titled and how phone calls are done throughout the whole time. But really, the only way we were able to build that end-to-end experience was working with Funraisin and the Funraisin system to be able to make sure that from the very first point, all through the journey, it all looked, it all sounded, it all felt the same way. And this wasn't like a bespoke build. Like this wasn't like creating it. This was, out of the box functionality. Like we were able to add this level of customization to deliver that brand experience the whole way through.
Just quickly, Steve, one more question before you go into the concept or show more of the sort of like the science and experience. Did you ever have any doubts on this concept, and if so, what were they?
So very early on, we knew that the idea was going to work. It's really, we haven't seen anything else that's added, puzzles solving and puzzle coding and all of those things are hugely popular. There was the big Sudoku boom, during COVID, everyone was doing Wordle. People love puzzles. People love the idea of like using their brain rather than their body. And so much of fundraising has gone towards the body. Run this, walk this, jump out of this, abseil off this. So many physical challenges, which are very sponsorable. It has that peer-to-peer element to it. And just for a long time, we've been trying to work out how we can create that experience for people that love puzzles. Taps into such a big part of the army demographic and the army audience, but also a much, much bigger demographic than that. If you've studied World War II or you've learned about Bletchley Park and you like doing crosswords on a Sunday afternoon, this is the sort of thing that you can get involved in. And it feels like a really immersive, emotive experience that has the added benefit of raising money for a veterans charity. So whether you want to just dip in lightly on that side of things or really get immersed in understanding what the charity does, it gives that flexibility to a supporter to be able to work out how they want to engage with us as an organization.
Great.
The big challenge was how to actually deliver that. And I think the idea of having to have, that's 30 puzzles, we need people to be able to put the answers in. We need to be able to create all the incentives and the nudges. There's lots of different levels that we'll get into shortly. And it was actually just the slightly daunting element of, right, how do we take this nice idea that we have in our heads and be able to create an experience that from a user point of view just keeps delighting them all the way through without, having to log into different systems or having to, have jarring experiences that don't quite sit within that central theme.
Thanks, Steve.
Right, so some of the actual visuals, which I think is really important. And here you can see, in the marketing campaign that's being done, or in the emails that are being sent out to our wider database or to eShots, really start that storytelling early on, and that then flows through every touch point we have with them. It's about trying to keep it as simple as possible. We can go off in 55 different directions here, but how are we able to keep it, all that stuff that we know, why should I do this event? Like, what is it and how do I sign up? That's all people are interested in. If you can start with the why and why it's so important, then everything else flows from that. But then on the how, the actual how do we sign up? Really just don't try and over-engineer it. Like, get them in the door, get the information you need straight on. We've kept that theme, we've kept that agent language and the branding and the narrative throughout, but we want them in, we want them signed up, we want them part of it, because the whole point of it is getting them in and getting them onto their hub. So the hub for us was the really key element of it, and that this is where we're able to really start generating the storytelling and the fun. So this is where there's so much evidence that the more often people log into their dashboard, the more they personalize it, the more they tell the story, the more money they raise. And so we've tried to push that as far as we possibly can. So we're not just asking people to log in, don't just go and log into your page so you can invite more people to give you more money. What are you getting out of that hub experience? How are you interacting with it? So the idea is that every single communication is driving people back to that hub. So it's about, log in to create your own secret agent name, like log in that, you hit your 5 mile marker, your code is going to be hosted on your dashboard. That's where you put your answer and you check whether it's right or not. We have all the badges and levels for like fundraising levels, and once you complete your mission, your whole hub goes wild with excitement and joy. And you can buy hints and clues and all sorts of things, because again, if they're on their page, it's a much better place for us to be able to drive those fundraising nudges. I think of it as they're being driven in-house, they're on that hub, it's in that environment, and they're so much more likely to engage with it than another email that pops into an inbox that's likely to be deleted. Again, all of it links back to that story. It's about the narrative and the journey, and then like rewarding people at every stage through that experience, whether it's getting the right answer on a code or hitting a fundraising level, incentivizing and driving behaviors that we want to see at every stage. You can kind of see here, like some of the, badges you can have. You get a mission accomplished badge for each of the different missions we have. And, it's driving people back to their hub so that they can see it all. But also, don't be afraid about using really simple traditional boards, like collecting the badges, getting the rewards. The way we like to think of it is that some people like to use their fundraising page to tell their story. It's about them telling their own story. But actually, there's a large proportion of people that come to their page because they want to experience a story. They want to learn something. They want to be rewarded by something. They want to get something themselves out of it. Try and think of it as how you can reward your supporters in that environment. Get them excited and get them engaged. We have like a very, we still use all of the traditional rewards, such a successful driver of positive engagement. But again, it's about trying to keep these relevant and worthwhile to the audience. When you get your first donation, you get a pencil. And I've been very careful here because you get an eraser at the end of the pencil. So in the UK, we call it a rubber, but I've been told not to say that. So you get an eraser at the end of the pencil because, you're trying to solve the code. So you need an eraser at the end. You raise £50, you get the puzzles printed and sent to your address. So much easier to do them when they're printed out rather than trying to do them on digital form. You can make notes and scroll all over it. These are relatively low cost items to print or produce, but they're really high value for the people completing the challenge. And I think as well, to link back to what the platform is able to provide here, because the reports are so customizable, because you can just set the reports up and you have the data you need when you need it. It just was so simple to set this up and to administer it. We run a report once a week and post them out. It's not more complicated than that. There's no scrabbling between systems or trying to dedupe lists or trying to import it to a CRM and cross-reference it against something else and do something else. You just run a report and send them out. Really, really, it's actually been the only way we've been able to do it. And then one thing that we were really, really particularly proud of was about people were getting stuck. They were hitting a roadblock. There was a puzzle that they couldn't get past, and then they were dropping off at that point. So we added this extra layer in of providing a clue to people who make a self-donation. So driving donations through accessing clues. So here you can see someone's put the wrong answer in, and it has added in a line saying, if you want a clue, make a donation. And then in that thank you email that gets sent out for the personal donation, there's a clue to help them solve that latest puzzle. So it's just adding that like extra level, they're delighted because they've been able to carry on and move on with their journey, but we've been able to generate extra funds from it as well. So, it's how can you provide things to engage and support the audience that also generate income for the organization. So obviously, it sounds like a lovely campaign, and I'd be thinking, but does it actually work for the charity? Has it actually worked? So I've pulled together a couple of metrics, and I think, again, just to provide some context here, like our full active database before Operation Bletchley was around 60,000 supporters, and these stats here are from the last 5 years. So we've added another 15,000 people. These are participants. This isn't donors. These are participants. Across the missions. The average age has been 49, which compared to the average age of, this is so different from our writing a check national service veterans in their 80s and 90s. But it doesn't exclude them either. They can still take part in the event and, help their grandchildren solve the puzzles. And an amazing 70% of agents actually complete a mission, which, for a virtual event, has completely blown us away. They have signed up and really engaged and actually gone through that whole process. They've completed that distance. They've solved all those puzzles. A number of people as well that, do more than one level. So, they do the junior puzzle, they do the codebreaker, and they do the cipher expert. They are very, very engaged. And then some of the other demographics, which really surprised me. It's 65% of people that signed up were women. Again, our demographic was very, very male orientated beforehand. 65% of people that signed up were women. And 70% of people hit their fundraising targets. Now, these were really low fundraising targets for a virtual event. But I think because of those incentives, if people were just buying a couple of puzzles, it really helps get that fundraising average and that target much more achievable. And the thing that I'm most proud of here is that 28% of people have come back and done something else for the charity. So whether that's another mission, we now run multiple missions over the years, setting up a regular gift, or signed up to a different event. So it's a really, really significant portion of people that have come through this product that have stuck around.
Yes. So, yeah. Sorry, Steve, I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay, on this slide and the previous one. But my first one is on this slide. You say you were surprised about the skew towards women being secret agents. So clearly it wasn't intentional, but why do you think that is?
The reality is that actually the most effective secret agents in the whole of British history have historically been women. Women are obviously brilliant at code breaking and at infiltrating separate parts. And the agents that you meet as you take part in the event are genuine real life agents. So you can start going down these little Wikipedia holes. And honestly, we've just fully geeked out learning all these stories of people in Cairo and in Paris and all of these places that did these incredible missions. I think because it has that intergenerational approach, it has that idea of actually, this is the sort of thing that I'd like to get my children involved in, or, actually, parents, let's get you out of the house and doing a bit of walking and solving these puzzles. I think that is where it has resonated with that audience. And I think as well that we didn't have many products that were particularly suited to a female audience. Not that it's particularly distinct, but a weekend, 5 days walking the D-Day beaches skews male. And actually this is a more accessible product. You can do it anywhere in the world, you can do it on your own time, you can get your children involved. I think that's why it's appealed to that audience.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's super interesting about the family and the kids, the family kind of joining together to crack codes. And what kid doesn't want to be a secret agent? I certainly did. And I still see myself as a small kid. Another question on the previous slide, you kind of mentioned the 70% completion rate. And I just want to kind of delve into that a little bit more, if that's okay. And probably, maybe this is a British brag, maybe. So hear me out, everybody, hear me out. So just recently, even last week, we had the Berkeley's Marathon in Massachusetts, which hopefully many people on the call have heard about. If you haven't, go check it out. It's just incredible. It's basically 20 finishers have only just achieved it over 30 years. And we've just celebrated the first woman to complete the Berkeley's Marathon, which is 5 marathons over 60 hours. And it is kind of code breaking. You've got a compass and you've got a map and you've got to find these books and rip the page. You've got a specific page you need to rip out the book and collect them, put them in a bag. And you only finish that marathon, that first marathon, if you've collected all the pages, and then you hand it back to the race director. But we've had this first one, but the point here is it's difficult, and the difficulty level is incredibly hard. So people want to do it because it's difficult, but also people don't complete it and want to come back to complete it the next year. So my question is the 70%, is that intentional, or do you want to try and make it really difficult, or kind of just achievable? Like, what's your feelings there?
So the idea that we have every single time on the Cypher Expert is we want to make it basically unsolvable. We have yet to do that because we don't write the puzzles ourselves. We commission a puzzle writer to do it, and there's lots of incredible puzzle writers out there. But it is about that. It's about making things that there's always levels above, there's always challenge above. It's about, there's a value in everybody finishing it and everybody getting a medal and everybody being a winner. But I think there is a part of people as well that's innately competitive and want to, whether that's personally competitive or competitive amongst the group. And it's about tapping into that competition and that element of, oh, well, I did one mission and I completed the junior level, I'm going for the codebreaker level next. Or finding that you want to push yourself as far as you possibly can. And the personal joy you get when you hit that thing that you didn't think you'd be able to do, trying to bake that into the project as well is really important.
I was just going to say, sorry to finish off on that particular point. What's really interesting here is the connection to what you first said in the beginning around a marathon or an ultra marathon or a really tough physical challenge. This is the same thing, really, but it's still got to get moved. But it's like code breaking. It's still a challenge. And there's different levels. And when you get that medal, it's still feel that kudos and that gratitude, just like you get a medal around your neck when you finish your first marathon. Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, great. So the next thing that I wanted to just kind of touch on is about that what next. It's about why we think people have stuck around. And then, so I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about our underlying campaign that runs across all our events, which is called the Fundraising Army. And the idea here is try to keep the premise incredibly simple. It's about when you sign up for any event, you become a new recruit in our army, you become a private in the Fundraising Army. And as you raise more money, you go up through the ranks. So this exists on an event by event level, and we can run promotions boards and set up little triggers so that when some people hit milestones, we've recorded these little selfie videos of a man dressed in World War II uniform, just thanking people for hitting a fundraising level. But what we've been able to do through the fundraising platform is be able to pull together a lifetime fundraising value. So it's not just on an event by event basis, but it's across multiple events. So you can see there, you start off at 0, but you can go all the way up to £100,000 fundraising, which makes you a general. This has actually worked really well in the army because you can have quite junior ranks being really effective fundraisers and suddenly outranking their superior. And there's a bit of fun to be had there. It is about being able to create that value across the program. So I've got a couple of examples to show you here. So the one on the left is a chap called Steve Smith. So he first came to the charity through an Operation Bletchley mission. And he raised £1. If you just jump onto the next slide, Lance. Completed his mission, probably had a good time, but then he came back and did another one. And then over the course of the project, over multiple years, he has raised more money, taking part in, some of our other events. So the Medicine Ball Challenge or the virtual Frontline Walk. And then he did the Frontline Walk along the Normandy beaches and raised thousands of pounds. So he's been drawn into that fundraising army, and by building up his rank over time. And then a final story from me is really about one of our brilliant fundraisers, a chap called Tom Saunders. Very important, Tom Saunders. Tom has done 8 events for us now over 7 years. A couple of Operation Bletchley missions and a few other things. And one of my team, and I can take absolutely no credit for this whatsoever, noticed that he was on £19,970. Now I'm going to give you 10 seconds to see if you can guess what we did. This is your own little code breaking puzzle. Tom Saunders. £19,970. Anything? Any guesses? Anyone gets it, I'll send them an Operation Bletchley medal. So, when he raised another £30 and hit that £20,000 level, we sent him a KFC bucket. Colonel Saunders, it was close enough for us. So it's about those rewards and those moments of like fun and enjoyment and personal achievement, but also then celebrating that in the community. The picture of him holding his chicken bucket is one of the favorites on the Fundraising Army Facebook page. Brilliant. So I've just been asked to summarize kind of my key takeaways. I'm going to keep this short. So it's about that storytelling. We all respond to narrative, and it's about how you can weave your charity's narrative into that. Like, we weren't involved in Bletchley Park. Like, we weren't involved in any code breaking. It's got nothing to do with the core sides of the charity, but we have taken a lot of that understanding and used it to raise money for us. Try and keep it authentic throughout. Like, how do we keep it a coherent message throughout the entire project from a user's point of view, and keep it fun as well, and then try and keep the big picture in mind. So how can you keep the coherence you've had on an individual project through a whole program so that people can easily transition without too much friction? So it's not about being a big organization or a huge profile or creating loads of custom content. Like, as I say, so much of this stuff was just off the shelf. The codes are a PDF and an email that's sent out. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel here, but it's how to generate that sense of belonging, of loyalty that really resonates with the values of your supporters, both the ones you've already got and the ones that you want to get.
So at Fundraising, of course, we have our own couple of takeaways here. I think for the interest of time and making sure that we get through any further items in the chat, any other comments from you, Steve, I think we can go ahead and just breeze through these and move forward on to Mark, our second and final poll of this webinar. So as that's pulled up from Mark Becker, if anyone has any additional questions, comments in the chats, things that you might feel are your takeaways, please go ahead and drop those in as you answer the poll question as well.
All right.
And as well, people are answering the poll questions. I think one of my biggest takeaways for this myself was that as someone who's like worked in software for my entire career, like product management, a lot of it, it's just so easy to have this big idea and just want to do everything. So I think my favorite thing of all this, beyond just like, it's an amazing idea, an amazing organization, Steve, just that you were very careful about what not to over-engineer, like the registration process. What works. So thinking like, oh, it's like a product manager, minimum viable product, really stuck to that. And I think that helped reduce a lot of risk and, got people into that entry point where you were able to engage them. So I appreciate the world, your restraint there.
I think there's a resource element there as well. We don't have a huge budget or a big team to be able to do this stuff. So it's about how we can make this viable and scalable, but also achievable within the resource restrictions that we've got.
Okay, so for our chat moderators, is there anything that we feel has not been addressed in the natural flow of the conversation, guys?
There was one other question in the chat that Karen had asked. Super cool campaign. Seems it was customized. How much of that was done by, how much is available kind of out of the box versus fundraising developers versus the organization's own team, and was it really heavy coding as far as customization, or just really just putting in some content?
It was so it's built up over time. There has been some budget on some bespoke pieces, but we're not talking big money here. The basic project was built from the off the shelf bits and pieces. They are email triggers, they are dashboard functions, they are reports that all exist within fundraising already. The support team at Fundraising have just been absolutely brilliant. This isn't additional costs. This has been within the basic parameters of the platform, and they're all such experts. A conversation with them can take you in a direction. And because of the way the system's built, we've been able to do quite a lot of it ourselves. Not techie, I'm not a coder, I don't work in that world, but because of the way the system's built, things like the visual builder, things like the knowledge bank, we've been able to do quite a lot of it in-house without having to outsource bits and pieces. And I think that's made a big difference as well, and has made a big difference to the ROI as well.
It's great. And for that first campaign, how long did it take from starting to build it out to launch?
It was 3 months. We had we had the concept and the idea relatively well developed internally, and then worked from kind of having those first conversations to getting it out there and live was a 12-week cycle. And again, it wasn't about trying to throw everything at it. It was about how can we just get it out there and test it and build it, and then prove the concept works, and then build it each year and add improvements and iterations each time.
That's great. Sorry, Lance, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, just on the development front, one of the things that surprised me most when I came to work at Funraisin is in our free support, there's 30 minutes per day of kind of what you could call anything goes assistance. So if that's a SQL query, if that's a little bit of JavaScript or CSS, beyond just like, hey, how do I do this in the product? That's also something that we offer, and is perpetually one of my favorite things about this company that I've come to work for.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about it is that it's our instance, it's our data, it's our customizations. It's not anything that's outsourced to a third party, in that you get a whole load of anonymized data or data sharing. All of the challenges to do with that. They are on the Army Benevolent Fund URL. They are in that world. They are constantly. We're not taking them to third party sites or anything like that, and that we have control over the privacy policy, the consents, all of those elements, is that they sit on our platform and we have control over that. So we're not having to battle third-party suppliers to be able to get control of things.
Another great question came in, how you engage donors in a fun way when the organization supports those who are experiencing hardship and trauma. Like, how do you kind of walk that line?
Yes, I think it's, again, coming back to it needs to be authentic the whole way through. People will see through it instantly if it's kitsch or underplaying something or overplaying something. It's about trying to understand the values of the organization. The Army is a very serious place, and the people we're supporting have very serious issues, but the people raising money need to feel energized and excited and enthused, and that they are involved in something and part of a community and making a difference, and that's the key element.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Yeah, thanks, Steve, Keith, Lance. Just a great campaign. When I heard about this, I'm like, let's go ahead and share this with folks. I think it's just a unique campaign for peer-to-peer fundraising and in general, and just a different spin. So I don't know, Lance or anybody, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, that's what I find so exciting about this place. It's not just the platform, it's the people, and a lot of the people are our customers that we work with, and all the amazing and things that they show us, like some that just after 17 years in fundraising, some things still just make me tear up a little bit when I see it, based on how genius and amazing these customers are. So just thank you all for joining today. Just a quick comment. A massive amount of you have been with us from the beginning of this webinar and stuck through it. I think that's amazing. So thank you for taking the time of your day, your attention, your focus, and thank you, Steve, for this opportunity to hear from you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Bye.